Well, so tell me a bit about your backstory. How did you come to be an intuitive? How did you develop the
Oh,
gift?
well, basically what happened is I will try to keep it brief. First of all, everybody's psychic. It comes in differently for different people, but everybody's psychic. And I grew up in Hawaii where there was a lot of that tendency. And when I was in high school, a friend, we were drinking beer in the mountains, trying to stay away from the police, and a friend's grandmother died, and everybody saw the spirit. So we saw
Oh,
her spirit. And so we were all like, oh, I was like, I want to learn how to be psychic. I think that would be really cool. And I asked my mom, and she's like, this old hippie. She's like, oh, just meditate. And so I started meditating with one of my friends, and then I started knowing too much. I knew who was gossiping about me, knew who was cheating. My boyfriend was cheating. I just started knowing when people were started knowing a lot of stuff. And then one day I saw some spirits and they scared me. They just really scared me. And so I just it terrified me. And I didn't know how to manage that. And
sure.
then my dad had always said, if you see something you don't like it, just say in the name of Jesus Christ, tell it to leave. So I was terrified, teenager in bed, like with this stuff looming around me. And I was like, in the name of Jesus Christ, I could barely even speak, you know. And it worked. It worked. The
Uh-huh.
stuff left.
Wow.
I was like done. I was like, I'm not touching that stuff in 10-foot pole. And I slept with the light on for a very long
Really?
time. And then in my, many, many moons later, I had been an actor for 20 years and that career was going and there was some stuff happening in my private life. And I just started meditating again for the first time. And all of, a whole lot of psychic awareness just bubbled up. But with that psychic awareness came the ability to start seeing spirits. But I was getting a lot of healing with the meditating. So it was like, oh, do I throw the baby out with bathwater? So I, like you mentioned earlier, just went around. I was in Los Angeles at the time and I tried a whole bunch of stuff and nothing worked. Wasn't a Wiccan. I wasn't I was like trying to pull bits and pieces from different places that wasn't super hokey. I just didn't want, I had been raised around Birkenstocks and and I was just like, I'm trying to run away from that world. Like,
Right. I don't want to be hippie. I don't want to be a new age hippie.
wasn't towards it. Don't want it. And and then somebody told me about a psychic school, and I was fully convinced it was going to be just I just was like, this is going to be like all my crazy parents, drugged up mushroom people. Like, I just this is going to be horrible. But I'm going to go because I'm kind of desperate because at that point I was like a scene out of Whoopi Goldberg, the last scene in Ghost where she's like surrounded by all the stuff.
Yeah.
Like that was me. I was like, oh my God, I got to get rid of stuff. So I went to psychic school to stop being psychic. Like that was my
Oh, wow.
goal. I need to stop it. And I showed up and they taught me how to ground and they taught me how, and became addicted. I became a psychic school addict because it was so fascinating and so interesting. And suddenly my entire existence suddenly made sense in a way that it never had before. So like I had spent years in therapy and my therapist was like, really, there's nothing wrong with you. But I didn't know I was clairsentient. I could feel all these other people's emotions. And so, and I could hear their thoughts, but I didn't know that's what was happening. I just thought I would get sad out of nowhere or, would get insecure out of nowhere. So for me, it was this mind opening experience to go, this is my energy. That's not my energy. These are my thoughts. These aren't my thoughts. And then suddenly I was a much happier, not that I was a hot mess. Other people wouldn't say I was. I felt like I was. Everybody else describes me that way. But I just felt a lot better.
Mhm.
And so I just couldn't stop taking classes, never with any intention of teaching.
Mhm.
And then 2008 came along and my job went away and
Oh,
I was
yeah.
like, what am I going to do next? And then it was sort of like, why don't you do this thing that you love doing? And I'm like,
Yeah.
no. And then I started doing it and just readings at the beginning. And then I started doing public readings and all the acting back. It's like God had been training me forever to do it,
Sure.
basically, is what had happened.
Yeah.
All the acting and then all the crappy jobs to support the acting, like sales, suddenly like all aligned up so that Kawena is comfortable in front of an audience. She doesn't know what's going to happen. She doesn't know what questions people are going to. You learn improv and you just go with it.
Mhm.
And so all of that lined up to. So I started doing these readings, and then from that, I was like, "Oh crap, I'm a medium." And I started seeing, obviously it was. That's what I started I started communicating with people, and usually they would go, "Well, this is wrong. How do I fix it?" And because the best healing thing I'd ever had was going to psych school, I was like, "Wow, you're an empath, obviously, or you're this, so you need to learn how to manage that." And they'd be like, "How do I do that?" And I'm like, "I don't know," because I wasn't teaching. And so
Yeah.
eventually I was like, "All right, well, I gotta teach a class."
Yeah.
And I was just gonna teach one class, and then they were like, "Well, what's next class?" I was like, "Oh, all right."
Well, this is the
And then
thing.
my stepdad's like, "So you're starting a school?" And I'm a sideways person. I'm like, "I am not starting a school." Like, I just that's too much. And a year later, I had this shingle happen. I was starting a school, and
Of course.
I had moved from LA to Portland.
Oh my
So,
goodness.
yeah, so that was I was in I don't know, it was 15 years ago now.
Amazing.
So